Hey there everyone, it's KillerDog here. It really frustrates me when I see people who should be strong enough to do a bit of content, but are still struggling. I have lots of friends, and I mean no offense to them by saying, but I have a lot of friends who should really be able to solo platinum events and tournaments, and they struggle. They struggle because they haven't really changed out of the way they play, and the way they play ends up getting them killed, which in tournaments really matters because you've only got one life. And so I'm doing a short series now, one for Wizard, one for Archer, and one for Knight, just a video on each, to show how to beat PvE. So in these videos I'm going to be showing a low level build, which will be just strong enough to do Platinum events, and I'm going to be showing how you can tackle Platinum events and Platinum Tournament with that kind of character and still beat them quite easily and consistently. Then I'm going to be doing a mid-level kind of build, which is kind of what I'd expect to get an end game player, but like someone who doesn't put loads of time into them. So, you know, they've played for less than a year, but they're still quite strong. And then I'm going to be doing top level stuff and show how to really push the limits of your character to get the best damage output. So going to be going through those three in order, and hopefully this will help out a lot of people. And please, if I do refer you to this video, I don't mean any offense to you. There are lots of people out there who play this game, and they play it really well, and then there are others who play it really well, but they're just not quite playing in a way that will consistently get them wins. So that's what this video is going to be doing. It's showing how to use the casters in order to get consistent wins, and to just obliterate the PvE content. So without further ado, let's move into the video. In order to create my low-level wizard, I've set promotion level 50, and I'm in full relic gear, as well as a couple of legendary tournament rewards. I've got no banner there, and just a few dragon cores. Unfortunately my power wasn't quite high enough, so I've added on a few Skirins, a few max Skirins, just to literally add some power on. They had a bit of damage on too, but I'm not going to be using those skills, so it won't affect anything. So I've got just enough power for Platinum difficulty. Now, with the 120 skill points that I've allowed myself, 120 is really what you should be at by the time you reach Platinum difficulty. If you're not at that point, you can't create a solid build. So passives are the first thing to look at. It's very important to have the armor passive, which pretty much doubles your armor, so that will give you sort of a constant 50% damage reduction. It's a absolute necessary thing, you've got to have it, as well as the damage boost. This increases your damage by 20%. This increases your base health, so do not get this, ignore that. Now, you also want the movement speed. This is key in order to just move around the enemies. Very important to have that. Cooldown reduction for spamming your skills more frequently. And then I've got 5 in each of the mana abilities. The reason why I've got that is that a mana potion actually won't increase the mana you get, other than when your character would normally get mana. So you've got to have this passive regenerating mana over time, as well as this is very useful to have mana on basic attack. So just 10 points in there in total will mean that when you have a mana potion active, you should have no problems with mana at all. So that's only 50 points into passives that you actually need. Then we come to the active skills. The ones I've got here are, so just to talk briefly, you want mobility, defense, and some offense. Here, for offense with wizards, it's difficult to get it. However, you've got pet skills which do a lot of damage. So Drake especially, this is a very key skill for low-level players. Put 10 points into it, and then the damage will be very nice. This is 500% pet damage. The cooldown as well is quite low, so you can spam this really frequently. Then having Mimic 2 means you can get more Drakes out, and when you've got a cooldown potion active, it's not too bad here. Otherwise, without a cooldown potion, you can't use this very frequently. But anyway, this is for increasing your damage output. Now, Drake is mainly a single target skill, so having Arcane Ball is really useful for having that area of effect, as well as you can just spam this everywhere. It's really good for farming too. So yeah, this is a key skill to have. So 10 points in that too. And then we've got the defense. Bit more on offense. Master of Ice. This just generally, Archmage. This just generally increases your damage output when you've got the Master of Ice scoring on. Yeah, it's great to go for a water build earlier on and just focus on this Master of Ice scoring and then use water skills with it, and you'll get a lot of damage output there early on before then you focus on other elements. Then for defense, we've got both Frost Armor and Protection Bubble. This gives you just a passive, almost constant 60% damage reduction. keep an eye on it and make sure that the buff's on all the time. When you've got a cooldown potion, you can keep it active all the time. You just got to wait until the armor ends before you reapply it. Otherwise, it won't reapply it properly. Protection bubble 2. This, when on a cooldown potion, is pretty insane. You can use it really frequently, and when you've already got the damage reduction from frost armor, this takes up a lot of damage, and you can, stop yourself from taking too much damage by doing that. There's no actual way to heal here, so you will need rejuvenation potions. You can get small rejuvenation potions from story map, perfectly fine, so that's not a problem. Just make sure you've got enough. And then lastly, for mobility, this teleport is going to be very, very useful. Because what you can do here is you can be teleporting around, you have protection bubble on when you're going to get attacked, and otherwise put frost strikes between you and the opponents, you and the enemies. So for skill runes, the ones I would suggest focusing on to begin with, and what I'm using here, Empowered Frozen Sphere, this is just going to slow as well as doing some quite decent water damage. It's very useful for controlling the enemies as well as doing damage to them. Frost Drake, this, like I was saying earlier, does a load of damage. This adds on a load more, and it's water, which means it sometimes gets a bonus from Master of Ice. But yeah, that's just going to be a key skill. It also slows the enemies that it hits, which again is great for controlling them. And then I've got the Master of Ice skill rune just for a bit of extra water damage. So those are the only skill runes I'm using, and that's the build otherwise. Now I'm going to go into the event and then the tournament. However, I just want to mention first, the reason why I'm using all the potions is when you're at this point, this stage, when you're underpowered, you need to be using damage, cooldown, and mana potion when you're in the content. You can pick up the 2-minute potions really easily from story maps, so just make sure you're topped up and have them in your hotkeys here to use them, as well as a small rejuvenation potion. Anyway, I'm going to get on with the Platinum event. The best way to start every tournament and event is to start stacking up some drakes. So you want to put them just outside of their range off the boss or the enemies there, and just stack up quite a few. You can see when the first one's going to end, and then you can start taking on the enemies. Now, this is a really good event for showing how to play with each of the classes, because there are loads of enemies. They respawn periodically, and you've got to move to avoid certain stuff. It's just great in general. So, what I'm going to be doing here is mostly focusing on the enemies that aren't the boss, because they're going to be respawning periodically. I've got to keep their numbers under control, as well as I'm concentrating now. As well as just generally bring them down, and then the boss can be taken out by the frost drakes, because the frost drakes will just attack the closest target, and they do really good damage to a single target. So as you can see, the boss is about half down now. I'm just going to make sure that when my drakes are going down in number, that I teleport away into one of the sides, so all the enemies are on one side of me, and then putting the frost drakes down between me and the enemies. I'm not having too many problems with the number of enemies. Oh, I say that. There are quite a few now. Okay, I'm just going to stand over this side. There's one enemy that's a bit close that I want to take down, so I can attack that. Oh, there's tornado thing next to me, so I get out of the way. And as you can see, I haven't really had much trouble throughout the whole thing. Sometimes I do get a bit of trouble. I've tested this a few times, and this particular time, no trouble at all. I barely got attacked. So that's kind of a good example of how you can take out the enemies despite being really weak. So now let's move on to the tournament. This challenge is notoriously difficult. However, by dealing with it in the same way that we do, by using the same tactics, it's actually okay to deal with. So what I'm going to do to begin with is stack up the frost drakes again. There are 2 range enemies in this and 1 melee enemy. The range enemies are the problem because you can't just simply dodge around them the way you can with melee enemies. So I'm going to be focusing on the range enemies first. Got to get rid of them before then dealing with the melee enemy. Melee enemies really aren't too much trouble as long as you can jump around, as long as you've got room to do that. So I'm going to try and bring them down as fast as I can. Annoyingly, this guy does heal them, which is a bit of a problem. But should be able to do it. Ooh, I very nearly died there. Okay. This one's nearly dead. I got hit when I didn't have frost armor on then. Yes, okay, this one's going down. Now they turn into wolves. That's what makes this challenge really tricky. Is that you don't simply have 3 bosses, you have 6. Now, I don't know when frost armor's coming off. I'm slightly wary. Now it is. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I want to take down this wolf. Just to lower the number of enemies now. If I can. Okay. Should be able to take it down now. Oh, he's just being healed. Ah. Okay. Alright, we also took down the boss, so he's turned into a bear, which is a bit of a problem. That bear wipes out the frost drakes really quickly. So I'm going to have to be very wary now. However, there are only 2 enemies, so this should be a bit of a doddle. I say wary in being a doddle. Yeah, I can take down the bear now, because 1 range enemy is okay. And as you can see, bear down. And then now I'm going to take down this guy. Ooh, he actually managed to hit me when I didn't have frost. Oh, I did have frost armor. But anyway, there we go. As you can see, once you've only got a few enemies, they can't deal with your frost drakes, and then you can take them down really quickly. And there we go. Challenge done. So that's everything I wanted to show for a low-level wizard. I hope that's good enough. This is with the water build. If you get a nature drake, that's a lot better. Nature drake Skurrin's a lot better than the other ones. There are also some other good Skurrins to go for. However, I just wanted to keep it simple and use Skurrins which are easy to get. So that's it for the low level. We're now going to move on to the mid-level wizard. For my mid-level build, I've gone for promotion level 70. With this, I'm not trying to show what people end up with in the end game. I'm trying to show that point between being weak and being your end game level. So this is the kind of in between where you've got some skill runes, you've got some promotion, you're a bit stronger than a weak player, but you're still you haven't created your full build. So you've got promotion level 70, mythic gear on all round, and then some dragon cores too. Not the high up ones, just epic cores to kind of give a better representation of stuff, and then 78% on all the elements, which isn't insane, but it is, you know, off that weak level which I had. I had about 25% previously. So for the skills, the passive skills exactly the same. They're the necessary ones, and unless you've got lots of skill points, I wouldn't bother putting into certain other things. You've got the 5 points there in each of the mana as well, as I explained before. For active skills, this I've got 180 points in there. So in total, that's 230 skill points, which I feel like is a lot, but it's what people can get to after a few months. And I wanted to show kind of what you can get to with these skills, where you'd start working on them and, you know, how you'd put them together into a build. So I've got all the active skills here, all the main ones, other than Burst and Mana Bolts. These 2 are great for PvP. I've just skipped them out because I didn't want to put like loads of skill points into things. So you'd probably go for those 2. However, because I'm going for a PvE build thing here, I've gone for Polymorph instead. So Polymorph, having lots of points in this, you get the duration up. And with the Skurrins, this is a really damaging skill. So the one I'd recommend is Mad Squirrel, although Infected Pig is another one that's out there too. They may bring out, you know, Water Fire ones later if you're watching this video later. But currently I'd just say Mad Squirrel, really good. With 70 points, is every 15 points you add, adds 2 seconds on, or a second? 1 second, that's it. Which increases damage output of it, as well as increasing that polymorph duration. So this is going to mean that you can control small enemies really, really nicely. And ultimately in PvE, this helps a great deal. In lots of challenges, when it gets tough for a wizard is when you're overcome by too many opponents because you can't tank the same way a knight can with like really high damage reduction. You rely almost on drakes and then teleporting around and just using a bit of protection bubble. So previously, like the low-level wizard, you're going to be playing the same kind of way, except for the fact you have a few extra tools, like this polymorph. Another one is Mana Storm, that's going to be, you're able to slow the enemies. I don't have a Skurrin on this because I didn't want to put too many Skurrins on the class. However, you know, having Skurrins on this will make it actually really damaging too. Great over-effect damage skill. The other ones I've kind of gone through already. A new one which I'm using now is Arcane Beam. This is a brilliant single target killer. And I've got Water Beam on it because that's a really cheap Skurrin that lots of people go for because it's water. However, you know, there are other options there which are great for the skill. And then the extra additions are healing fountain. So with a healing shrine skill rune, I've gone the full out here and put the max skill rune on. This means it's a 30% heal per second, which is really quite helpful in a lot of situations to let you tank up that bit more than, when you're not using cooldown potion. Protection bubble isn't very reliable. You can only have it on about a third of the time, so you're going to be taking hits. And healing shrine means for those 10 seconds you can tank up a small amount of damage very nicely. And then also I've got Arcane Breath. Flame Breath here is an incredibly powerful skill rune. It was added to increase the damage per second of a wizard, and it really does that. So I'm not actually going to be using this because I'm fighting water enemies. However, this would be a great part of the build. You need the max Flame Breath. Don't go beyond 10 skill points because it doesn't do any base damage. You only want the 10 points in it for the lower cooldown. The lower cooldown. So Mimic is something which I wanted to step away from. However, it is quite useful in some cases for doing multiple drakes or multiple healing shrines or something. And also, it does fairly good damage even at this stage. So that's quite good to have. Now, as for skill runes, Master of Ice got this maxed. This is one of the essential skill runes to get maxed, first of all, because of that water boost, which just helps with things like a powered Frozen Sphere that's a nice, powerful rune that will be very useful. Getting those two up means you've got a solid damage output. Also helps with Water Beam there. And I haven't really got much else water here, but anyway. Mad Squirrel as well, I've spoken about. Nature Drake, here we go. So Nature Drake is the strongest skill rune on this class, on this skill for now. Reason being is the damage over time is incredibly strong. So I would recommend just going for Nature Drake and not any of the others. First of all, go to them later because Nature Drake is just going to be really, really strong. I've also got Empowered Flame Armor and Fire Blink because you'd get these for farming. You'd max them out for farming. So in total, I've got number of skill runes maxed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think that's 9. And that one's a really cheap one. So, I think I counted it as 9.5. Oh no, it's because I removed the Mana Storm one. So anyway, I feel like that's something which you could get to in a few months. Over the course of a few months, and by the time you get to this point. So I think it's a fair representation of it. You can have all the 10 skills in here, apart from... Well, actually, I think I've got 11 skills. 12 skills. Anyway, basically, these are the skills I recommend having on your hotbar. So not actually using Mimic unless you need it in particular challenges. Mana Storm here is great for a bit of crowd control, as you're teleporting around and stuff, slowing the enemies behind. But anyway, I'm going to go into the event and properly show how to play with this, and beating the event. Like with the low level wizard, it's good to put a Drake down where some enemies are going to spawn if you know they're going to spawn there. And now I'm going to go take on the boss. I'm actually going to put a Mana Storm, and this is best played from a range. However, if I stand right there, I can polymorph all the small enemies. So that's what I'm going to do first. I'll take down this one because he avoided it. And then now I'm going to focus on the boss and just avoid those melee enemies. So I'm going to, be playing from a range as best I can and handling all the enemies with the different skills. That's the idea. So enemies are back, so I can go in and polymorph them. Just going to Healing Shrine as well to sort of, heal back up. As you can see, I'm not really having any trouble. So far, anyway. Quite a lot of enemies there. I would love to have Polymorph right now, but unfortunately not. Okay, we got it now. Polymorph! That looks like one weird squirrel there. Need to focus on attacking a bit more. I think when I did this with a wizard on low level, actually, I took a lot of time over it again. But anyway, that's it with the mid-level. So now I'm going to move on to the tournament. Just now in the low-level tournament clip, I talked about this being notoriously difficult, and in fact it is. It's quite insane, and I thought about it, and I decided I will show this clip. I managed to do it. I did about 60 runs of this, trying to work out if there was a way to, consistently do it. Unfortunately, there isn't. And simply, like in practice you would use a cooldown potion and you get the drakes out faster, so you wouldn't have to deal with like the onslaught of the ranged enemies. But I did manage to do it, and I just want to show it. I had to use a load of potions. But yeah, anyway, I did this loads of times, and I worked out exactly how to do it. And I have to use Mimic instead of Mana Storm here. Basically, I need to massively damage this one range enemy, so there's only one range enemy. And then I need to make the most out of the slow. So I'm not going to be... This talk here is not about the sort of normal way you play. This is, just talking exactly how I did this challenge. And I'm going to be showing another tournament challenge afterwards. One which is much better, much more normal to talk about this. So I took down that one mage guy. He's turned into a wolf. The wolves can attack from a ridiculous distance. Now I've got to focus on taking down either the wolf or the other guy. And the other melee guy. And what I found was that these guys could be slowed. So what I'm trying to do, which probably isn't too obvious, is I'll put the drakes off to the side and then slow with the empowered frozen sphere, which just ultimately stops those melee enemies from coming so near me so easily, and slows them down, killing the drakes. Now that there's only 2 of them, it gets a lot easier, and I'm in a lot more control now. I think I do have 1 or 2 near deaths, but even so, it's a ridiculous challenge. And I feel like I should mention as well, with use of drakes, since you don't need them quite so much for tanking, once you get strong enough to kind of this level, you probably want to put them off to the side rather than kind of necessarily between. Before you had a cooldown potion, you could just spam them and you wanted to put them between you and the enemy. However, here you want to try and maximize the amount you get from the few drakes you get. So you want to put them way off to the side, however closer to the enemy than you are, so that the enemies go to that and they waste loads of time. That's the idea. Anyway, that was that challenge. I'm now going to move on to a more normal tournament challenge, and yeah, you'll see how they normally play out. Alright, this is a more typical normal challenge. So I'm going to be doing this like the event. So small enemies I will deal with polymorph, and I've also got what's it called? Sorry, Mana Storm as well, which can do great air effect damage. And then what I'll be doing once they're down is drakes off to the side to attract the boss's attention while I just attack the boss directly. Most bosses can't deal with the drakes if they're alone, so once you've got them to this point, you should be fine. And that's one of the strong points of wizards, is they can deal with those small enemies quite nicely, and then just leave you with the boss that's easier to handle. Now, the enemies do respawn periodically, so yep, here they come. I've got polymorph ready, and then I can just polymorph them again. My polymorph is actually kind of killing them off, which is nice. Doesn't always happen because you haven't always got that much damage output, but you've got other skills there too. So that was the tournament run, and as you can see, mostly okay. The enemies were attacking me while polymorphed. Don't know why that's the case. It's not normally, but anyway, that's this one. So I'm going to move on to the high level wizard now. With this high level wizard, I'm trying to show that end goal that people want to get to. The stage where you have all the skill runes you want, you have high promotion, and you have good elemental stats. The kind of stage which would probably take over a year to get to. However, if you were playing the game consistently, you can get there, without spending any money. And you're at the point where you can do all PvE content quite easily. However, if you optimize, you can do the PvE content really easily, and actually you will feel almost overpowered. And that's what I'm hopefully going to be showing with this build. So I've got to 120 class promotion. The elemental stats are up at 150%. I'm going to be using fire, water, and nature in this, so those are the ones I've got to 150%, which 150% is quite a lot. However, I feel if you focus on your elemental jewels and stuff, you could get there, in over a year kind of time. Onto the skill points. Skill points and the passives, I've got the same 50 points there. There's just not really much you can gain from the other passive stats. The mana regeneration ones you could get up, but it's just not going to do that much good, as I'll come to later. So that's 50 points there. And then I've gone with 450 points in abilities. So that's 500 points total, which is a lot, but like I said, you'll get there. And this is the kind of end goal, what you're looking to get at. So with these, we're going to jump in with the ones I pushed beyond level 10. Polymorph, I already had level 80 with the mid-level, and put that up to 99. Like I was saying previously, incredibly strong skill, does massive damage, air effect, and yeah, just having the more points in there makes it more damaging. So that one's at 99. Then Archmage got to 99 too. This doesn't add a whole lot of benefit to the character. It's just basically a small heal over time. It's by 3.3% twice per second. So it's a full heal over the course of the 15 seconds. And yeah, it just kind of helps a bit. And it means that you can almost delay your healing shrine probably at the beginning. You could put the 10 points in healing shrine, however, or healing fountain, sorry, but what I find here is that with the skill runes in it that add 20% on anyway, you're getting a 30% heal per second, which isn't perfectly fine, like it's enough. For PvP, it's a 20% heal per second, so adding 10 points in would make it, increase by 50%, and like, could have use there, but for PvE, because I'm optimizing for that, I'd say it's not really that helpful. Much better to go with the Archmage. However, one downside of doing this is it gets the mana cost up to 360, so you've got to really be aware of that. And in fact, with Mimic here, mana cost of 360 is a bit of an issue, so what I would recommend at the beginning is using Archmage before Mimic. Then that eliminates the cost of it. However, you do need your mana over 1,000 if you're going to be pumping the skills up this high. Once you've got over 1,000, it should be fine to last out any tournament or event. And if you do have trouble, then you've just got to use rejuvenation potions. Those mana passive skills, like I was saying, they don't really help at this point, unless you've got a mana potion active, in which case you're perfectly fine. But anyway, so Mimic, this doesn't have a lot of use when you get to this top level. Reason being is pet damage doesn't increase, so it's comparatively lower once you get strong. Also, Mimic doesn't use your elemental stats, which means once you've got your elemental stats high, it just really doesn't do much with your skills. So, Mimic doesn't have a lot of use. However, if you pump it up to level 99, then it gets a 20-second duration, which then gives it some use. Not a massive amount of use, saying that. However, you can use it at the beginning, and then swap it out. So what I'll be doing is I'll be buffing like that, and then switching it out for Mad Squirrel, Polymorph. So that's what I'm going to be doing with Mimic, and I would say then it does really help out, because for those 20 seconds, it's going to be adding a fair amount of damage. Not loads, but having Squirrel in it with the nature bonus there, that actually triples the nature damage it does. That means it'll be kind of useful for doing Mad Squirrel, Earthwave as well. So yeah, it'll do some damage there. It's very helpful. And then finally we've got Arcane Ball. So the cooldown on this is normally 2 seconds, and I would recommend not getting this up beyond level 10, purely for the reason it's a farming skill and you don't want to add any more cooldown onto it. However, optimizing for PvE and PvP, you do want to get this up, because it's actually, the cooldown's too low, so you can't use it optimally, and so getting it up to 3 seconds doesn't actually cause you any problems, and all it does is it means it deals more damage per use. So this I've got up to a 3-second cooldown, and it will be perfectly fine. I'll actually show you with skills here. The way you want to use it is actually fairly early on. So you use it, and then each time it comes off cooldown, use it again, and then as you can see, it comes off cooldown just when I'm done with the other skills, and you can carry on like that. That's the idea of it. So don't just focus on the other skills because they do more damage. You do want to be using it each time it comes off cooldown, and probably first off. So now going in with the skills I've added. Avalanche, I added this one. So Mana Bolts is not a PvE skill. It's really not helpful in PvE. However, with the Avalanche skill, this means it changes the damage to do Air of Effect rather than splitting, which is just a huge boost for PvE, as well as making it do 60% more damage because it hits 8 times rather than 5. So yeah, this makes it a really good PvE skill, and I'll be using that a lot. Then also added, I don't think I added anything else actually. Yeah, I took away Teleport. So Teleport was incredibly useful in the low level and mid level because you needed it to avoid those attacks. Just generally move around the map. It's extremely useful there. However, once you get to this point, your damage output's good enough that actually you can just go walk next to the enemy, stand next to them, attack them with all your skills, tank when you need to with Protection Bubble or Healing Fountain, and then you can just do it like that. You just you come out, you kill them all in like 20-30 seconds, perfectly fine. You don't need Teleport. However, for some challenges it may be useful, so you've always got it there. Another honourable mention is Arcane Breath, Flame Breath. specifically. So Flame Breath is an incredibly good damage dealer. It adds a load of damage per second, and I would be using it. However, the enemies I'm going to be fighting take half damage from fire, so it's just not going to be that useful. So bear in mind that this would be there, you would be using this, and it would be somewhere in the build, but I'm just not using it right now. And for that reason, you would be stood at close range, which, like I've said already, you would be, especially for things like Polymorph and for Mana Storm. On Mana Storm, we've now got a Skurin on, which the Skurins, they do really good damage, so a lot of nature damage coming from there, from Earthwave. So that is the build, all the different skills there. As you can see on the hotbar, you've got the 5 long cooldown skills here, and then on the other one, you've got all the damage skills with the lower cooldown. So you mainly stick to this, like I said, buff like that at the beginning, get it out, start attacking with the other skills, and then when you need to defend, use either Healing Shrine or Protection Bubble. Either one should be fine, and you've got that Mimic for the first 20 seconds, so you want to really, pummel all the enemies as much as you can to begin with, as best you can. So, without further ado, I'm going to move into the event to show just how strong this can be. As I said, I'm going to buff up with Mimic beforehand, and then switch it out for Polymorph. I'm going to open with a Nature Drake, just because I can, and then also Earthwave, because this boss takes a little while to get going. But now, put on all the damage, and he should hopefully die before even done. Yep, there we go. Boss is dead. How long did that take? Like 15 seconds? 10-15 seconds? Feel like an archer almost. So that is how you stack together all the damage. And I didn't have Flame Breath in there, but as you can see, I'll just imitate again. Did all the buffs here. Nature Drake down, move in. So they attack the Nature Drake as the first thing. This boss doesn't actually go immediately. It takes a little while to set up. So I put off an Earthwave, and then I can't remember exactly whether I did a Healing Shrine then, but either so. Healing Shrine is your kind of ultimate tanking skill, so if you use this right at the beginning, especially if you've got a Mimic there, you should hopefully be able to stand in both of them. And then I started spamming off the different skills. I made sure I got Avalanche on before he jumped up, because that's what this boss does, and as well also used Mad Squirrel when all the small enemies moved in, so they were taken out of the equation. And as you saw, took down the boss really quickly by stacking all those things together. Anyway, so I'm going to move on to the tournament now. For the tournament, I'm going to show 5 different challenges. 3 of them are going to be interesting ones, and then 2 of them more typical ones. This first challenge is surprisingly tricky, which I say surprisingly because wizards are meant to be great for crowd control. However, when it comes to massive crowd control, they actually struggle in this challenge. The reason is there's only one skill which will heal the wizard, and it's got a really long cooldown, and there's just the constant onslaught of range damage here, which you can't really deal with. So I could go teleporting around and deal with it that way. You know, there are various ways I could deal with it, probably better. But because I want to go with this particular playstyle, I'm going to be doing it kind of, fighting from the side. So I'm over one side here, and I'm going to be attacking in, pinning off the enemies and putting down drakes in order to try and take them down. Now, I should only need to do a few more kills here, I think. I've just run out of flame armor, so I did a healing shrine to tank up, and yeah, thankfully got all the kills I needed, but it did get a little bit risky at the end, just because my flame armor came off. So the next challenge I'm going to show is another interesting one. This is one which, again, wizards struggle on a bit, mainly because you've got to survive for a length of time, as well as doing lots of damage output. Now, wizards can do great damage output in a burst, putting all their skills together and kind of tanking up and doing all those attacks. However, trying to do good damage consistently over a long period of time, I find a bit trickier on wizard. So I'm going to be doing taking down one of these towers, and then using polymorph to take down the enemies really quickly. It's actually going surprisingly well. It might be because I had the mimic on at the beginning. That does help out a lot. So he's going to kill that drake, and I want him to go after the enemy, not me. Sorry, after the other drake, not me. So I'm going to put avalanche down right on top of them, because that will annihilate them. And then pinning off the other enemies. Everything going fine. I need to top up my mana because that's just going to, you know, run down in a long challenge like this. And actually, what I'm going to do now is take out the boss, simply because there's no need to do the risk of doing another tower and just, you know, putting it off, because you can kill this boss even when you've only killed 2 of the towers. So there we go. That's that challenge done. I generally like to do that as a wizard. At the other 2 classes, I like to take down the 3 towers because it's relatively risk-free, and then you can just get the boss kill really quickly. But on wizard, it's just a bit more irritating to do it, I find. So I'm now going to show a more typical challenge. This one, what am I going to show? Acolyte of Frost. Yeah, let's show this one. Actually, I didn't. No, I did want to show this one. Sorry, getting confused for a second. So this one I'm going to buff up at the beginning, as usual. Then going to go in. Now, these guys do quite a bit of damage with their boulders, so I make sure to buff up with Protection Bubble 2, and that means that I can then tank them up enough that I can then get all the skills off and kill the boss. That's just a slight change from the usual way of playing it, where you wouldn't do the Protection Bubble. You just go in with Healing Shrine on there, and then start attacking with the other skills. But sometimes the enemies will throw out a lot of damage output with big hits that will kill you if you've only got a heal over time. So you need that shield on top, just for those boulders in that challenge, which I wanted to pick out and show. Permafrost here. This is a challenge which is a bit irritating for the other classes. I find it less irritating for wizard. Might just be me personally, but anyway. Oh, did I just? No, I didn't use polymorph. Okay, for a second I thought I used polymorph. So this one, I find there's no real risk, as long as you take down these towers to begin with, because they're a bit... Oh, why am I getting super lag on this challenge? I've been recording the other clips tonight for the other classes, and just this challenge I've had like super lag on. Don't know why. So anyway, we're past that now. So I'm just going to take down these towers, and it just gives you way more freedom with your movement. So now I shouldn't have any trouble. You just wait until those guys come in, and then you can attack with the other skills. Didn't really need to use Earthstorm there. Probably use a polymorph just for good measure. So you've got to dodge that thing, and then also he calls down these icicles from the sky. It's like an avalanche type thing, and then that does a lot of damage. But just any time he rolls to the sky, start moving, and it should be fine to put off everything. As you can see, relatively risk-free other than that attack from the sky and the ice spikes. The only problem about this challenge is it can be a bit slow, which I could have done this a lot faster, I think. And also I'm going to die now. Oh no, didn't die. Somehow I didn't die. Really thought I had died with that there. But anyway, super laggy challenge for some reason. But yeah, so that one, you just kind of clear out the stuff, keep the boss busy with the drakes, because it will target everything on the drakes, and then you can dodge the other stuff. I find it a lot easier. I think probably because drakes can be spammed quite frequently, which in that challenge it struggles with the sort of frequency spawn of the drakes. Whereas on Archer, like the decoy, I have it level 99, so it's got a 15-second cooldown, which is like half as frequently as Drake. Anyway, so I'm going to show one last challenge here, which I'll just switch back to Mimic. This last challenge, this is where you can tank up and you can just destroy the boss really quickly with all the damage per second skills here. Again, with Flame Breath would be nice, but it's not going to do much here. So going with Healing Shrine, I used Polymorph at the beginning just for good measure, and I got knocked back. It's an annoying thing in this challenge. Wasn't the best display, was it? Yeah, we'll do that again. This guy, I'm not sure which moves it is, because he seems to have 2 moves that can knock you back. But sometimes you just go flying way back, and it kicks you out of your Healing Shrine. So yeah, shouldn't happen this time. I'll put the Drake more on top of him. Yeah, we're getting lag. Where is this lag coming from? Shouldn't be going on. Okay, let's put the damage over time moves on, and then now it's just a case of, spamming these skills and killing the boss. The boss is dead. I'm not going to worry about that death, because we got a bit of lag and I screwed up the skill uses slightly. But as you can see, you go in, you take down the boss really quickly. So, bit of a sorry note to end on. However, I hope you've enjoyed this video and all the tips and tricks that I've shown with the different kind of tiers. I'm not going to be redoing this video anytime soon, if at all. I don't particularly want to redo it, because I feel like right now we have enough tools to deal with every kind of situation. I mean, the other two classes I'd say are stronger in general fighting in PvE. Wizards struggle a bit in some situations because they just they don't have so much control with their skills. They're more like they're much better in PvP, I'd say, with the way the skills work. But anyway, I feel like there's enough tools in there, and I could mix around with obviously Flame Breath would be doing lots of damage, and then you've got Teleport as well, which you can always bring in some challenges. That really helps, and I've taken it out on this top tier build, this top level build. So anyway, I feel there's enough tools, and I don't think that there'll be developments which will then change that, so you need other stuff. But if there are changes like that, then I will be redoing this video. But otherwise, I think this will stand the test of time. So if you have any friends who are struggling to play Wizard, or want some extra tips and stuff, send them to this video. I hope they find it helpful, and I hope in general this really helps out some people knowing what to focus on and how to play. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.